After the American Revolution, several northern states took action to ban slavery outright, or gradually, including Vermont, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. These states all passed legislation to reduce, limit, or abolish slavery, and by 1860, the practice of slavery had vastly diminished in the North. Ironically enough, some southern states did take some action, including South Carolina. Thomas Jefferson wrote to the future governor of South Carolina, praising him for the state. In January of 1808, the importation of slaves became illegal federally, but the internal slave trade continued. In 1820, a controversial agreement was passed called the Missouri Compromise. This was signed by James Monroe into law, allowing Missouri to become a slave state as long as no other territory state above it geographically could become one. Maine was added to the United States as a free state, continuing the balance of northern free states and southern slave states. This showed the country that lines were being drawn legally between the North and South, basically forming two different countries. At this time, the cotton gin began to maximize industry in the South, creating the need for more slave labor. The North began to implement protective tariffs that would help the manufacturing business owners more by taxing the South for imported and exported foreign goods, and it was a direct hit on its economy. A year later, Abraham Lincoln emerged on the scene as a star in politics. Unlike most of the Southern politicians who belonged to the Democratic Party, Lincoln was a member of the New Republican Party, also called the Grand Old Party, which was formed in 1854 by the former members of the Whig Party, who opposed the expansion of slavery in newly created states or territories. He was extremely vocal about his anti-slavery views, particularly in the expansion of it. In 1859, John Brown was on the national scene again. Becoming one of the well-known abolitionists of the time due to his actions in Kansas, and also a friend of Frederick Douglass, a prominent and arguably the most notable black abolitionist, he formed a slave rebellion against the Army arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Frederick Douglass warned Brown that pacifism would be a more sensible point of action, but Brown did not listen. He led a rebellious attack on the federal forces, but ended up executed for it. John Brown's rebellion would be known to some as the first shot in the Civil War, but would be remembered by all. Douglass would say that John Brown started the war to end slavery. The tipping point for the South was the election of 1860, where all of the conflicts in the previous decades came to a head when Abraham Lincoln was elected 16th President of the United States. Within these few months, the Confederate States of America was formed, all even before Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated officially as president. On February 8th and 9th, the Confederacy created their own government in Montgomery, Alabama, and appointed its president, Jefferson Davis. In the Constitution of the Confederate States of America, slavery was now protected under Article 4, Section 3. On March 4, 1861, Abraham Lincoln would be inaugurated as the 16th President of the United States. In this speech, he once again declares his duties to preserve the Union and collect these duties or tariffs on the South by doing whatever is necessary if forced upon. In conclusion, there were many complex issues that led to this conflict. The right of states to secede from the Union, slavery, imbalanced taxes, two differentiating cultures, and the enforcement of tariffs were all contributing causes of the American Civil War. The new Confederate government was created in direct defiance of the federal government because they believed the Union was acting against the Constitution. This tension would start to explode as the final tariff bill was passed and Lincoln was inaugurated. The Union would fight to preserve the United States of America and enforce these tariffs, while the Confederacy fought what was in their mind a Southern war for independence to defend their homeland in what they call the War of Northern Aggression. The first battle episode of our series on the